Sutherland McCoy had served as a scout on the western frontier, fought in the wars of Oregon and California, and later served in the Civil War for the Union. Yet among all the dangers he faced in his life, one memory stayed with him forever. In the summer of 1852, 22-year-old Sutherland McCoy crossed the Great Plains on the Oregon Trail. One day, armed with a rifle, he set out onto the open prairie in search of buffalo. By nightfall, he was alone and many miles from camp, and somewhere out on the dark plains, wolves had begun to follow him. This is Sutherland McCoy's account of a buffalo hunt that became a fight for survival on the American frontier. An order had come to not break camp today, but to wash and rest the teams. An old man named Brown, who was traveling with us and whom I supposed had been quite a hunter in his younger days, said to me, "We will take our guns and go farther up the creek to wash our clothes, and while they dry on our backs, go buffalo hunting." I replied, "You are certainly a mind reader, as I was just thinking of making such a proposition to you. With our guns, ammunition, and a forked stick and red blanket I used for decoying antelope, we slipped quietly away from camp. At the creek, we washed in the cold water and let our clothes dry on our backs. Then we moved on into the hills. After several miles across the valley, we finally sighted a buffalo herd. Using the wind and the ridges for cover, we crawled forward on our hands and knees, hoping to get within range. We were nearly close enough to fire when I disturbed a prairie rattlesnake. As Brown came over him, the snake coiled and rattled furiously. Brown quickly jumped to his feet, and in an instant, the buffalo were gone. Later, deeper in the hills, we found another herd. This time, we came within range of a large old bull. At the crack of our rifles, he went down. But before we could reload, the bull was back on his feet, charging straight toward us, with the herd thundering behind him. We barely leapt aside in time to avoid being trampled. Brown fired again as the bull passed within 30 yards. Wounded and staggering, the animal finally turned back toward the herd and disappeared into the hills. Then Brown said, "You can do as you please about following them, but I go no farther in that direction." He believed we were already many miles from camp, but I was determined to follow the wounded buffalo. I handed Brown my forked stick and red blanket, and we parted ways. When I finally caught up with the animal, I discovered it was no longer alone. A great many white wolves, buffalo wolves, as they were called, had gathered behind it, drawn by the smell of blood. After several shots, I finally brought the buffalo down. But the moment it fell, the wolves rushed in, yelling and shooting my revolver. I barely reached the buffalo ahead of the pack. In an instant, I found myself surrounded. Using my rifle at close range, I witnessed a scene I had never imagined. The wolves devoured their own dead and wounded in a frenzy before my eyes. With my hair standing on end and my legs shaking beneath me, I quickly cut away a strip of buffalo meat to carry back to camp. It seemed the hungry devils begrudged me even that small morsel. The wolves raised a terrible howl and appeared ready to charge at any moment. I quickly concluded my time was now or never. With revolver in one hand and rifle in the other, firing as rapidly as possible, I charged directly through their ranks. The wolves merely opened enough space to let me pass. Then followed a scene that baffles human language adequately to describe. The entire pack threw itself upon the buffalo carcass at once, snarling, fighting, and piling over one another in a frenzy. I turned and fired once more into the seething mass, which only increased their fury. I then congratulated myself, believing surely there could be no more wolves within 20 miles, as they all appeared gathered at the feast. But after traveling several miles toward camp at a rapid pace, I was horrified to hear the long, mournful howl of another white wolf somewhere off to my left. Soon another answered, then another, and then I knew they had scented me. Their howling became nearly continuous. How I searched the horizon, hoping to catch sight of our wagon train. And what sport it would be for the boys in camp to see me running at breakneck speed across the prairie pursued by hungry wolves. Then the sun went down. Still no wagons appeared, and now the voices of the wolves changed. I later learned that when wolves are at a distance, their howl is long and mournful. But when they have sighted their prey, the sound becomes shorter, sharper, and far more blood-curdling. As darkness gathered, I stopped several times to shoot wolves at close range, hoping the others would halt to devour the dead and wounded. It was then that I noticed a lone tree standing atop a steep hill some distance away. Seeing no other hope, I ran toward it. To my horror, wolves now crowded close behind me and ran in parallel lines on both sides. As several came within only a few steps, I turned and shot directly into the pack. While the others stopped to devour the wounded, I managed to reach the tree. It was perhaps 8 inches in diameter. I pulled myself into the branches. At first, I believed I might sit safely in the tree until morning. Meanwhile, the hungry devil snarled, snapped, and fought below me. Then the jumping began. One especially large wolf gave a warning snarl and launched himself toward me. His jaws snapped together almost directly in my face. I lost no time climbing higher into the tree. The tree shook constantly beneath me as they bit and pulled at the trunk below. I feared the tree would give way. As the wolves stood upright gnawing at the tree, their eyes glared upward like coals of fire. I still had a few rounds left in my Allen revolver. Whenever a wolf approached the trunk, I fired directly at its head. Each shot would begin another frenzy as the wolves tore apart their own wounded. At last, to my immense relief, they slowly began disappearing into the darkness. When all was quiet again, I descended from the tree. Not a live wolf remained in sight. Bones and carcasses lay scattered around the tree. Examining the tree in the moonlight, I discovered it had been nearly chewed through. And standing there among the dead wolves, I felt profoundly grateful to the Allen revolver that had saved my life. A walk of roughly 2 miles finally brought me back to camp. My old friend Brown gave thanks that I was still alive. Only a short time earlier, I had believed my fate was sealed. Even after 44 years, Sutherland McCoy never forgot the wolves. Few who crossed the Great Plains left behind a story as vivid or as terrifying as McCoy's. Here you'll find hidden stories of the Willamette Valley, its people, its places, and its history. If you find this worthwhile, please subscribe and like this video. Joining the channel helps support future work, and your comments help guide what comes next.